Welcome everyone to another episode of YPO Presents. My name is Stephen Hecht. I'm the co-founder and chief executive peacemaker of Million Peacemakers, also the author of Conflict, the Art of Everyday Peacemaking. And for today's purposes, I am the chair of the YPO Peace Action Network, a group of 900 YPOers and spouses and YNGers who are the younger or the youth of YPOers who are making a difference, transforming the world and making it a better place for ourselves, for the present and for the future. So we've got a really amazing panel here to share with you their stories, and you're going to get a lot out of it. And we want it to be a discussion with not only them, but you, the audience. So feel free to ask questions in the box where you see comments, and we'll try to address as many of them as we can. In anticipation of International Day of Peace, September the 21st, we're really excited to welcome two global leaders, fellow members of the YPO Peace Action Network, Alain Chetrit and Nicole. Welcome, Alain and Nicole.
Hi.
Thank you. Hello.
All righty. So let's get started right away. And we're going to start with you, Nicole. You are amazing. You've got, you're the managing director, I think, of 6 companies. I branded them with the X. I wonder why that is. It's all around food, just food distribution, food security. You've got a food bank. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. And you're also a mother of 4 young kids.
Yeah.
How do you have time to do all this? Where do you get the energy? And please share.
Yeah. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Nicole, and how I do it is, firstly, I only eat once a day. And I start my day with a black cup of coffee, and then that's it. And I can live on like 2.5 to 3 hours of sleep every day. So that's just to answer the question. But yes, I honestly find joy and passion in everything that I do. So just a little bit of a background is that I'm part of the YPO Singapore chapter. And, I've been a member of YPO for the last 4 to 5 years. An amazing network that I've learned from a lot of the mentors, both younger and older than myself. And basically, there's so much of good work that's going around in the wider network as well. But for myself, I reinvented my grandfather's business that was started in 1934. So he came to Singapore shortly before World War II to start a new life. He brought his younger daughter with him. And so we started the food distribution from a small little shop house, and then we have been growing and developing ever since. But through the 80 years of experience, our family has gone through some hard knocks, including complete bankruptcy in 1997 during the Asian currency crisis. So yes, I've been there when the banks came to seize the house just shortly before I joined the university. So it's a school of hard knocks, but very happy that I had the opportunity to revive my grandfather's business. So I've been in the trade since 2002, which is one pandemic ago during SARS, and shortly after the first IT bubble burst. But I've been in the trade ever since. And I thought, and one thing that got me really going was if I ever had the chance to make good the heritage that we have, I wanted to give back to society. And therefore, in 2012, we started the Food Bank Singapore. And in the first year, we redistributed 2 tons of food. And as of last year, we actually redistributed 1,600 tons of food. Yeah, and all excess. But this, in a nutshell, this is what I do.
That's amazing, Nicole. How many people would you say you feed a day?
I think our network reaches out to about 300,000 people. Yeah, and some people are quite surprised that do you have that many people in need in Singapore? So the numbers of towards hunger and food insecurity is about 10.4%. And Singapore has about 5.7 million people residing here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how that ties into peace is, I mean, to me, and please share your perspective, you can't have peace at home if you're hungry. You can't have peace with your neighbor if you're hungry.
I mean, I just wanted to ask all the audience as well, right? How many times have you felt so unhappy because you had a growling stomach? Or or for ladies at certain times of the month or whatever, after a bad day, we just really crave that chocolate or something so tasty, right? So imagine for the families and the people who really cannot afford to even put 3 square meals on the table, especially for kids. The amount of unpeacefulness or lawlessness at home in society, you can really sense it. And therefore, I think, especially over the last 18 months or so, when the whole entire world's in chaos, hunger became something not just about filling the tummies, but we wanted to ensure that we nourish their souls as well. So we've been going around giving happy food in a sense. So there's candy canes, there's lollipops, there's chocolates, sometimes fast food even, but just to make someone feel so happy. And in the local context, a lot of the elderly actually crave for a nice bowl of like fried noodles, for example. So we give them what makes them happy and not just something that is nutritionally balanced. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Nicole. Alain, let's move over to you. So Alain and I have known each other for a few years. Alain has been very, very active in YPO internationally, well, locally and internationally. I think you're in Washington, Alain?
I am.
You are. And I met you when you were the chair of YPO Gold Global, and that's for all YPOers who are 50 and over. And you've had such a major impact on the organization as well. I believe, speaking of impact, you created an impact recognition system within YPO, and you, during the pandemic, you started a new initiative called the Knowledge Pledge. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Alain, and the Knowledge Pledge.
Oh, thank you, Stephen, and thank you, YPO, for inviting me here today. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to connect with this audience. So I joined YPO in 1990 and served on several international leadership positions. But in general, I'm an entrepreneur. I launched several businesses. At the time of joining YPO, I owned and operated the Hugo Boss Retail, the concept that I created and obtained rights to the United States in 1987. When I sold those rights back to the German company, I went on to form an internet services company funded by Vivendi, the French media conglomerate. Then I went on to operate a hedge fund and founded my following startup, which is Lab Connect, a healthcare services company, which I am the chairman emeritus of today. So much for my for-profit life. You mentioned the Knowledge Pledge. About 18 months ago, I co-founded with 2 of my longtime YPO friends, Pierce Dunn and Abhijit Pawar, the Knowledge Pledge, an NGO that unites global leaders and social entrepreneurs to scale positive impact. So we realized as longtime YPOers, we have enormous responsibilities. The future of humanity and of our planet is in our hands. And we know that these problems can't be solved by just one person working alone. So the Knowledge Pledge can unlock our human capital and spirit to help billions of people today and empower the progress for future generations. So that's pretty much what I've been working on much full time for the last 18 months.
That's incredible. So you took, and again, you've gone from industry to industry, very different industries. You're really a true serial entrepreneur, and now you're using your skills for good. So kudos to you. So thanks for all you're doing, and I'm honored to be one of the folks that are supporting your Knowledge Pledge.
Thank you.
And Abhijit Pawar, coincidentally in India, has had such impact. He created Tanishka Women, who are women making impact in the world, and then college students. And he actually translated our book into Marathi for that purpose. So another amazing champion, along with Pierce Dunn.
Sure.
Let's talk about peace for a minute, individually, to both of you. Nicole, what does peace mean to you?
Peace, I think, is, to me, on a personal level, is about having that level of comfort that provides me with sanity of mind and clarity of mind. I think, we're happy to have social media now, right? I mean, that's why we have all these whatever virtual discussions and all that. I mean, give us 5-10 years ago, this would have never happened. The 3 of us could not have convened on such a platform to talk about such an important topic. But with social media, your mind gets very noisy as well. and sometimes I feel it's not peaceful. And so we sometimes need to learn to shut off from the noise. But I honestly feel that, to me, peace is something that needs to resonate from the inside out. And of course, I mean, with the current global situation that we're facing, there's a lot of instability, whether is it government wise, politics, and all that. And we kind of realized with the pandemic that some kind of structure or governance is so important to maintain peace in the world. It's just like if you have a great wife, right? Or a great husband, you probably have some peace at home as well. So I think it makes a difference. Yeah. So, but
it's interesting. We did a survey of Peace Action Network members, and the network started 20 years ago in the aftermath of September 11th, which, as we all know, just had its 20th anniversary. And there was a lot of Islamophobia going on, and members got together to see if we could get to know each other and discover commonalities, because there's so much of culture that is focusing on our differences, and social media, it's the same thing. And when we do get to know each other and go eyeball to eyeball, and we discover that, we all want the same thing. We all want to live in peace. We all want to feel safe. We all want to feel respected, and feeling disrespected is the source of most conflicts. We all want to have hope for the future for ourselves, our children, and grandchildren. And I just had a grandchild 4 months ago, and I could relate to that part for the first time. And I think you're there as well, Alain.
I am.
So Nicole, thank you for sharing that. And so when we surveyed members, inner peace and family peace was just as important as when they joined for peace and conflict zones and polarization. And also we're dealing with racial harmony and interfaith within the Peace Action Network, which were all important to our members. But like we said, you can't have peace with your neighbor if you don't have peace at home. You can't have peace at home if you don't have inner peace. Alain, over to you. What does peace mean for you?
First, Nicole, really inspiring that you started your comments by talking about inner peace and having the inner fights and having to solve the noise in your head and all that. I think that's really remarkable, because I've been thinking of peace as a peace between people and between nations. And so, but really starting in personally is important. So, it's actually an imperative towards uniting against climate change, against us, and for solving global problems, is to find peace. And to me, it means that we need to be more compassionate, to find collaboration, curiosity, and learning, and optimism in things we do. And compassion is an essential ingredient of peace. So we need to be listening to what the UN is saying on a day like today or this week, that to unlock our greatest human capital and human potential, we need to come together as a planet and do what is best for all people. So it really encompasses everything, and I applaud the way you approached it, Nicole.
Thanks on that for sharing. And I'd be curious to get to the root of what made you the way you are, both of you, because you guys are not the typical folks that we meet on the street. You're really making a difference, and you don't have to do to the extent you do. And Nicole, you could be in the food business and you're doing wonderfully. You don't have to be spending countless hours making sure people's bellies and souls are full. Can you share, Nicole, if there's anyone in your life that inspired you, or any people in your life that inspired you to be the way you are, and how you feel about it?
Yeah, so Stephen, I think from young, I was a very busybody girl. And I've always been in different types of leadership roles, right? And sometimes, neglecting my academic studies and things like that. But I've always had one very big supporter, even when I was like 3 or 4 years old, nursery, kindergarten. My grandma would actually be very supportive, my maternal grandmother. She noticed that I really had a passion outside and beyond school, really have a heart to see like how's my neighbor doing, or how's my classmate doing. I want to give a hand to the teachers and things like that. And she made one statement to me, and I remember this very clearly. When I was 7 years old, she told me, and this was actually a Chinese saying, but I'll translate into English.
Thank you.
Basically, it is a privilege to be able to serve and to give than to take. And that, since I was 7, I took that with me wherever I go. So even at times when I'm like worse off than anybody else, and some people are saying, oh, you're so active in school, your studies are like slipping, now that you are managing COVID, managing business, you still are thinking about charity and things like that. But I always go back to that statement, and she has been an inspiration. And she's also an inspiration because she started working during World War II when she was 8 years old. For a lady that didn't have any education, and to make such a remarkable statement, that has really left a deep mark on me. And so now that I'm a mother myself, that's something that I also share with my peers, with my children, and with the people around me, because it's a very simple, harmless statement, nothing very great, but the meaning behind it is worth everything else in the world. Yeah. So she was an inspiration.
Thank you, Nicole. It's amazing how a few words of encouragement and wisdom could go a long way. And Alain is working in the wisdom space right now. TKP, that's what it's all about. Alain, did you have a person that inspired you to help shape who you are today?
Like Nicole, it goes back to my my youth and my family. So I remember my father and grandfather when they would sit together. So my father and grandfather were in business together, and they were in the diamond business, precious stones business. And so they would sit together periodically to review their balance sheet, I guess, and their earnings. And the first thing they would do is pull out their list of charities they supported. And it was a long list. And they were the hospitals and the schools and the families and the other charities they had on their list, and they would allocate. First, they would go and do a little allocation to each one of them before they started splitting profits among themselves and their partners. So that I always was impressed by that and thought that was a great model. It reminds me that there is a reason why we do what we do. We can't be doing it just to amass wealth or to create more wealth for just our little clan, our little family. We need to be doing it for a larger group and people around us. Communities affect us, society affects us, and so we need to support all of that. And I learned that through that the freedom that my father and grandfather got from having the privilege of making a little bit of money at the time, and they would use that to just spread it around them. So I would say the combination of being young, sitting between my father and grandfather to see them do their math was an important aspect of my contribution to my life.
Thanks, Alain. We talk about framing. Framing is how we interpret facts, the lens through which we see the world, and it's impacted by the people that brought us up, our mentors, our parents, our culture, our life experience, our personalities. And how we deal with conflict is also impacted by our framing. Nicole, I think you work with your younger brother. How do you deal with that? Because I know I come from a family business background as well, way back, and I had a younger brother too, and we had a bit of conflict. So how do you deal with conflict?
So firstly, I was very blessed. My brother, he's about a year and a half younger than I am, but we have been great friends from young. And we have this mutual respect for each other. So I don't see him as my little brother. And, he, even in the workplace, he respects me like an older sister. So I think some of the Asian values that we've embedded from young in the family has kind of cascaded down to us. But the honest truth is that we like each other. I know it's not normal. In family businesses, it's always like all the fanciful stories. So I've kind of got it lucky. And I think from a very young age, my grandma, my dad has always said that, hey, you need to look after your brother and things like that. And I guess in that bringing up process, in that caregiving process, you develop a level of protectionism over your loved ones as well. And I guess sometimes during business, for sure, he's been in the company since 2008. I joined a little bit earlier, in 2002, but we've always learned to have that mutual respect, to have our back, to have each other's back as well. And I think whenever we think about conflict, it happens because we do not have each other's back. Doesn't matter whether is it between government agencies, between countries, or between people. It's just that we don't feel that we need to support our fellow brother or sister. And it doesn't have to be blood related, right? And that's when conflicts really start to occur. So for me, I really got it lucky. So till today, we always joke about it and we say that, oh my God, this pair of siblings like to work with each other so much. They see each other like already 7 days a week at work, everything else. They even started a charity together in 2012. So my brother actually said, are you sure you really like to work with your sister so much? It's quite miraculous that, after running 6 companies together, you still want to start a charity together. Are you nuts? Are you crazy? And the other thing, from a business perspective, I've had difficult conversations with my brother from very, very early on. And I guess in terms of preparing ourselves for conflict to come, because the honest truth is that when there's no money to be fought over, there's no fighting. But when there is wealth, you will start to fight. So in the early days, when we first started our business, which is food services, to acquire the family business, we had all the hard conversations, which included no spouses. Because we work so well together, we said, okay, no third party, no husbands, no wives, nobody. And the second thing that we already agreed on is that we will never force our children into the business if there's no passion, if they are not great for the job. If we can manage the business well, it is in our vision with the missions that we have built, the foundations that we have built. We can simply just start a family office, for example. They can be part of the board and things like that, but they don't need to run the business like what we do today. So I guess by having those hard conversations earlier on, it has already set the tone to minimize the conflicts that we have. Yeah.
That's great. And you had so many insights there, both from a family perspective, family business perspective, global perspective, and you're right. It's all related, and the kind of conflicts that happen geopolitically have the same triggers that come from families. And you could see some of the conflicts that affect the world are because that person had family conflict and didn't address it properly, or didn't have the right role models that you two have or had, and weren't the right role models for their children. Then it carries on generation to generation. We have a question for Alain from Twitter. Carrie B wants to know, as leaders, how could we increase our compassion quotient, especially when things are going poorly? Do you have any practical advice on everyday habits that help?
Huh.
Wow.
Well, I think I can answer in a general way. We are involved in business, and what we do on a regular basis is solve problems. We're faced with thousands of issues on a regular basis, and we become good problem solvers over time. Now, how to take those problem solving, that acumen and those skills, and apply them to nonprofit, or to apply them to society in general, brings that inner peace and compassion. I believe that there is a time now where we are moving from the regular P&L that we're accustomed to one of purpose and legacy. So if there is purpose and that in what one does, then it increases that quotient that you're referring to. That's my in terms of practical advice, is that everything has to go through the filter of compassion, of collaboration, of co-creation. I mean, it just equalizing a little bit more things.
Stephen, if I may add to what
Please,
Alain has
I was going to ask
mentioned.
you.
Yeah, I have a few thoughts. I think kindness and graciousness starts from self, starts from home, starts from your own company. So there are plenty of maybe very wealthy business people that, like donate tons and billions of dollars to everyone, but they may not be kind to their own employees, they may not be kind to their own teammates, and sometimes they even have very negative thoughts to themselves. Maybe they are not kind to themselves first. So I think in the very busy world that we live in today, it is very therefore important for all human beings and mankind to start by being kind to themselves, to have kind words for themselves, and therefore hopefully at some point be able to translate this kindness to the loved ones around them, including the bigger team that they actually manage from a company's perspective. So this is something that I mean, not just thought about from my grandfather's time, but I think on a personal level as well. I think that it's just very fake if someone just does goodness on external, right? But you treat your staff like terrible minions, right? I don't think that's correct. So I think kindness and graciousness should start from the most intimate people around us, and for us, it's the greater team that actually works for us. Yeah.
So Nicole, I totally agree with you. And some people might say, well, how do you do it practically? And that was the second part of that question. Do you have any tips on how to change one's attitude if you're perhaps weren't treated kindly yourself?
Yeah,
When you
I
were a
think,
kid, like you didn't have
yeah.
a grandmother, we didn't have a grandmother that took you under the wing. And any tips on now how to overcome that kind of thing where we're not kind to ourselves and others?
Yeah, I think it's I mean, maybe with the very modern day medias and things like that, it's very easy to criticize. But it's very difficult to look at the mirror every day and say that, hey, you're so handsome or you're so pretty, and you did a great job today, to give yourself that pat on the back. And I genuinely think that this is a skill to be able to self-encourage and and so that you can boost your positivity internally. So if one of the daily habits that I myself am still trying to do, because I struggled with an eating disorder since I was 11, I wasn't kind to myself. So even now as a mother, I realize that it's so important to be kind to myself, because my kids will see how I treat myself and the people around me. So
Mm.
but I think kind words, yeah.
Nicole, I know you've been with your partner for over 20 years now, if I understand correctly. Um, you're modeling with him the behaviors kind of that you want your kids to have, and so how do you how does that relationship impact your kindness quotient?
Yeah, so on this note, I've been together with my partner, spouse for 24 years. We've been dating for 13 and married for 11. And the strangest thing is that I think even in our relationship, we see a lot of kindness because, firstly, we're from distinct backgrounds, right? So I was born into a comfortable family, very privileged because my parents are loving, and things like that. But he comes from a completely different background. So this is number one. Secondly, since you're talking about peace, he comes from a different race. He's an Indian Muslim Malay. So it's a mix, yeah, and I'm just pure Chinese, right? So even in a very cosmopolitan Singapore, there was so much understanding that we still have to go through to embrace each other and to overcome, in order to just be in love with each other and in order to build a family together. So I think even between us, the amount of lessons that I've learned from my husband, and one very important thing is that through the ups and downs in my life, he has been my greatest cheerleader. With the pompons, but not the skirt. But so, but I just, but he has always been in the sideline, and he's always been the one. Hey, go, Nicole. You can really achieve greater things. And consistently, whether it was good times, bad times, he has always said that there's only one person in the world that I truly trust and I truly believe, right? And that's my wife. And I think in everybody's life, regardless how big or how small, you need to find that cheerleader. And it just happened that I found him when I was 19. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. That's really inspirational. I know I couldn't be doing what I'm doing without the support of my wife. And I think the ideal relationship is where your partner allows you and empowers you to be the best version of you that you could be. And clearly you
Yeah.
have that in your partner. Alain, any
Yeah,
comments on
yeah,
kindness and
I would
importance
add
of
just that if there was a big heading to the question, I would say that helping people create decent lives is a guiding principle. So everything you do, it goes through that filter. It helps guide decisions, and therefore makes it easier to have practical make practical decisions.
Wonderful. And by the way, I want to remind the audience that you could put your own questions in the comment section, and we will get to them as well for any of the members of our panel. Alain, the Knowledge Pledge is all about sharing wisdom, mentors sharing wisdom versus just sharing money. If you were to share wisdom with the audience on the topic of peace, be it inner peace, external peace, what wisdom would you share?
I'm going to respond by saying that this year and a half of working to build the Knowledge Pledge and bringing people together to serve society in general by collaborating, finding that collaboration is an important component of taking knowledge and applying it to those who need it. And so I would also say that being selfless and collaborative in many ways helps get there. Compassion is very important in these days, particularly now that we've lived through a year and a half of COVID, and we see that the world is one, and that we need each other, and we need to work as a unit in order to solve global issues, and not to create barriers or religions or borders or any of that to get in the way of making decisions, but just to think as human beings as one, and then to help each other. For example, at the Knowledge Pledge, we're working across the world. In one example, we're helping an organization in the Middle East. They're in 9 countries, including Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Palestine, Morocco, and others, and they're to help them with education for employment. And what we do there is help them scale to get more content, more technology in order to affect more lives. But I say that in the context of living peaceful lives and so forth, is that there are pockets in the world where there's been conflicts, and there's been conflicts between and religion is played an important part of the conflicts and all. And when you take that away and you just think of everyone as equal people in general, you find it becomes a lot easier to develop that compassion and to be able to help. So I would say for people to get involved in donating their knowledge, donating their time, donating something back to society. That I think would help elevate where we are now as people on this planet.
And some people would say, or wise people would say, the more you give, the better you feel yourself, the more purpose we have.
I'm going to use that to plug in YPO, because we're on a YPO platform and not a Knowledge Pledge platform. YPO is an amazing bond that it has created for all of us who are participants there. But for those who have served in leadership positions within YPO, we realize we get to experience the what you just said, the more you give, the more you get. The fact that having I encourage any YPOer listening today to get involved in leadership roles as often as they can, because that's where the value is. It's really being a member is one thing, but being a donor of time to YPO is really important, and it makes your life it made my life a lot better and easier.
Same here. I got involved a little later in my YPO journey than you. I joined YPO around the same time as you in '89, and I think you were 91. So I've been around a few years in YPO. But when I got involved at the chapter level and then the regional level and then internationally, it totally broadened my my circle of friends, my joy of life, the impact I've been able to make. And what I'm doing now, Conflict came out of a YPO event when I was the regional chair for education for Canada. And I wanted to do an event on conflict resolution because I have so much conflict in my life. And all those negotiation skills don't necessarily work for relationships with your spouse or kids or partners. And you can't out negotiate any of them. So it's totally transformed my life, this YPO journey that we're on. And Nicole, we see is starting early. She's only a member for 3 or 4 years, and you're already the learning chair of your chapter. So kudos to you. That learning chair role I had in 2009 was probably the most important role I ever had in YPO, and really rewarding. And Nicole, tell us about that the learning chair role, because it's something that anyone in YPO could look to do in their chapters.
So, I mean, to be perfectly honest about it, my onboarding journey with YPO was not great because I wasn't given the proper treatment, and no one really actually shared what YPO was about to me in a clear way. I didn't have the coffee with the chair, and things like that. But I know someone recommended me because they wanted some female diversity. So it's just to put it out there, because some of you might be interested in YPO and you want to join. And, these two gentlemen here are like sugarcoating things. Like all organizations, I wouldn't say that YPO is always perfect because there's so many chapters and it's a huge organization. But one biggest takeaway that I really, really felt was that although my onboarding journey was not the best, but I can become a part of the exco so that I make sure that it will be better for the people to come. Because once I got to know people, I really realized that the strength of YPO, it's not in, let's say, in the wealth or whatever, but it's in the knowledge, the network, and, the people that you really get to know, not just in Singapore, but, beyond our shores. So this was one of the things. And therefore, after 1 year in YPO, I became the family officer. And then subsequently, I took on the ALO, and now I'm the learning officer role. And actually this year, I'm doing something quite unique. I'm putting the P back in YPO for the Singapore chapter, which means I'm putting back the purpose into YPO. So everything, all the events that we are doing, it's around ESG, sustainability, giving back, the issues around food, around environment. And I think because a lot of businesses, especially the small and medium enterprises, they're a little bit lost in about figuring out what their ESG goals are. For bigger companies, it's quite clear because they spend the money, they have a great team, governance team and all that. But for medium and small members in YPO and medium and small businesses in general, we're kind of lost. We want to give back, or we want to put some kind of an ESG governance and everything into our ecosystem, into our businesses. But how do I do it? And therefore, I thought the first thing that I can do as the learning officer was that I changed the way we are going to learn. So this was a big step, number one. And the second thing that I did was actually I lumped the greater learning committee together so that the family and the partners and spouses group, actually everyone has an equal footing in terms of idea contribution, even the budgets and everything else. So I really feel that the meeting of minds with the greater learning team has brought so much wealth and knowledge and ideas to the table in bettering the YPO experience for all the members as well. So I just started. I'm starting my 3rd month, but so far, I think it's been proving to be an excellent restructuring. And I've already got my next ALO to buy into this idea. So there will be a lot of P's along the way about putting back the P in YPO. Yeah, but this is what I did.
That's awesome. And for the folks that don't know what ALO is, Assistant Learning Officer, we have a lot of acronyms in YPO. So the organization has changed. We've been around how many years, Alain? Is it 60 years? A little more than 60 years, right?
Yeah.
YPO. And the mission has been better leaders through lifelong learning and idea exchange to peer-to-peer network. It's not judgmental. We could take off our masks, be ourselves. None of us are perfect, and we all, many of us wear a mask in public, and it's a place where we could just share openly. And the organization has adopted a YPO 3.0, which is about purpose, as Nicole is alluding, and we have impact networks such as Peace, Planet, People, and Sustainable Business. And I'm chair of one of them, and we have just amazing people if you want to, and networks for members who are there who want to get involved, or potential members who want to get involved in YPO in this peer-to-peer learning and idea exchange network. Alain, anything you wanted to add there?
Well, I will add that some of a lot of value from YPO, of course, over the years, but becoming a better person, a better husband, a better father, lots of business learning along the way. But the most important thing that I treasure from YPO is the people I met, the relationships I developed, my current partners, Pierce and Abhijit, I met through YPO. Abhijit was, as you mentioned, he was the first honoree of the Global Impact Award back in 2014 or so. And that's when we recognized him and we became friends ever since. And Pierce, we met in the chapter here, but also on the international scene. It became quite important to the people we come across in YPO. Have become my best friends, my partners in my nonprofit, in business as well. So I can say that what it does for us is happens continuously.
Thank you, Alain. And I just want to address a question from the audience around the topic of mental health. Says mental health is top of mind for many people now, both our personal mental health, those of our employees as well. How are you addressing your mental health, that of your family, and of your employees, if you have employees? Nicole?
Yeah, I think mental health for me is going to be big from next year onwards, especially. I mean, after we get all the vaccination and all the everything done, it's going to be the next pandemic that we'll be facing. So this is number one. This is how I envision it, and why mental health has become such a big thing. It's also because when there's instability or when there's no peace, sometimes it happens because there's no money. So when you have jobs, when it's a good, society has its balances, everyone is duly employed, there's less conflict. So since today, I mean, it's all around peace, right? I just wanted to mention that economic stability will therefore bring some kind of peace as well, on the business front. And I think with more money and with that comfort that monetary gains can bring, you actually give some kind of a mental well-being. So a lot of times people now are feeling a little bit lost, right? I mean, not just stuck at home and Zooming fatigue and things like that. But the issue is that we are meant to be social people, and you'll find yourself sometimes, whether your strengths, your weaknesses, or whatever, by bantering with your colleagues, your friends, you want to crave for that whiskey or cocktail, or just a cup of latte with your best friend, right? But with COVID, that has all been thrown out of the window. And the honest truth is that even today, I mean, I would love to give both of you a hug, even if it's just virtually now, but it makes all the difference because you can smell the person, what cologne the person uses. And I think it has taken a toll on us through the last 18, 20 months or so, because we haven't been able to do that. Not all our five senses are working at this current moment. And therefore, I mean, just to go back to the question of mental health, I think we will need to find a way to recalibrate our mental well-being as a human species after this whole episode is over. And I wanted to add as well, in YPO, one of the things that I really felt over the last 18 months, right, other than on a personal level, I felt that collectively, as business people, as CEOs, as thought leaders amongst us, together as an organization, even if it's 10 of us as an impact group or whatever, different chapters coming together, that is such a strong thing that we have. Like, it's like a bundle of chopsticks coming together, it's unbreakable. So rather than one chopstick, you want to, make a change to the world in terms of sustainability and all that. But together, the power that we can create is greater than any government put together.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed there. And that's one of the things that motivated me in my role of learning officer. So when you do programming, a learning officer, if it's um, recognized as what we call the best of the best, other learning officers around the world could see it and be inspired by the work that you're doing. And I know an event I did on leadership and religion that won this international best of the best, or the one on conflict, has been spread and duplicated around the world. So you can make an impact globally, not just in your own chapter or city. Alain, any thoughts on the topic of mental health?
Well, look, the pandemic was a wake-up call, and reminded us that the world is one, and we need to take care of each other. That's really what's happening at the company level, and at the YPO level. We are employers. YPOers, we are employers. We have about 20 collectively. We have about 20 million employees or thereabout, and so we affected a lot of lives. And to take the learning from the pandemic and to apply it to our employees and to the people around us. So to insert more flexibility, more personal time, of all those things that make people's lives a little better, and to take our responsibilities seriously will help. There is YPO comes with responsibilities. I think I've didn't realize that at first. I thought YPO would come in because you benefit personally and you have to create bigger networks. But once you take in the YPO culture and you take in the relationships and you learn from all the events that we create and learning opportunities, then you have a responsibility back to the world. You cannot just take it in for yourself, for your own benefit. It has to be spread out. And so to those who are new YPOers, I would say that as you take in the YPO culture and learning, look around to see where you can apply it outside of your immediate circle, outside of your family, outside and outside of YPO, across barriers, across borders and all that, so you can help people. So that, to me, that's how we combat mental health, is by taking in what we learn and putting it out there to help people's lives.
Which makes our own lives so much more meaningful, and also the lives of the people that are around us in our family.
It goes to Nicole's point about putting the P back in YPO. Purpose. It is. I love that statement. Purpose. We use that in saying purpose and legacy as opposed to P&L, the typical profit and loss. And I agree that there is the bringing the purpose back to as a forefront makes is a good guidance. So,
and it's nice that you don't have to wait until when I joined YPO Gold, when I turned 50. I remember a speech by the chair of it at the time, that the first half of your life is building success in your business, in your relationship, and the back half is significance. How is the world a better place for you having been there? But people like Nicole aren't waiting for the back half. So kudos to you. And none of our members have to wait till they're 50 to start making the world a better place for themselves and others. I have another question here. Carrie wants to know, does sharing openly increase personal or business peace?
Sharing openly.
To sharing openly, being authentic, being your true self, and sharing, does it increase your personal and or business peace?
I'm going to just take a stab at this. I think that authenticity and transparency are imperatives to building bridges and connections. So building bridges and connections leads to peace. So I would say that it is absolutely important to have open relationships and transparency in order to connect people, because as we speak common languages, as we speak from the heart, as we get to share our pains and fears, we create compassion. All those things lead to a peaceful world and less conflict. So I would say that that's a very good question, in fact.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Nicole, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just I just happened to meet a friend today who's a life coach, and he said that a lot of the younger people of today, they are looking up to business owners, to CEOs and all that, not just as mentors, but they want to see a leader that is open 360 degrees. That means it's not just about getting the best revenue or the top dollar or the best profits anymore. They really want to see how you're conducting your lives, how are you talking, do you have that sense of respect for other people? So I think nowadays, especially for the youth, and the future of tomorrow, I guess as well, is that everyone is seeing us not just as business leaders, but as all-rounded good people. And therefore, to answer that question, I think it is very important to be as honest as we can be, not just to the people around us, but even to ourselves, so that, whether is it for self-improvement or everything else, when you live an authentic life and an honest life, so to say, everything will just simply fall into place.
Makes a lot of sense. A wise person told me that love and fear are two opposites, and there's been so much fear out there, and it may be unusual for business people to talk about love, but when we allow love to take over from fear, that transforms our lives and those of the people around us, and really makes a big difference. I know I've found that in my life. I grew up with a mother whose mother, my grandmother, lived in tough times during the Holocaust, and therefore naturally lived in a place of fear, and everything was from a place of fear. And it's hard to overcome that, yet it's so transformative and being so much more inner peace when we can overcome that and have love win over fear. And this world would be a much better place if we had that. We've got a few minutes left. If there are any questions from the audience, please feel free to put it in your comments. I'd like to mention a few things about the Peace Action Network for the folks that are in YPO that may not be members yet. So we're focusing on 3 pillars, which are very related to the conversation today. And then the first one is inner and family peace. And we have a wonderful person, and we have people on our board who are responsible for each of these, who have a lot of experience in that and passion on that. The second one is polarization and conflict zones, which is how we started. And the third pillar is interfaith and racial harmony. And we're doing an event on our next event, which will help bring inner peace. It's October the 13th with Jean-Paul Samputu, who's a survivor of the Rwandan genocide. And he was the leading singer in Africa and in Rwanda before that. And he found out after the genocide that his family was killed during it by someone close to him. And he entered a depression of 6 years. Where he was suicidal. He found alcohol to try to soothe the pain, which didn't work clearly. And when it came to his friend being tried and perhaps hung, he decided that the only way for him to move forward was to forgive his friend, because otherwise it would hold him back, because he found forgiveness for himself and not for the oppressor. So he will share his story, and it's very inspirational. And we're going to look at, through breakouts, how holding a grudge or not having forgiveness is impacting our own lives. I know my father wasn't invited to his brother's deathbed due to a grudge they had 50 years earlier, and they probably forgot what it was about. So that's had a major impact in many lives. That's October the 13th. And then November the 4th, meeting on the theme of forgiveness, but more at the geopolitical level, is former President Santos will be joining us, who won the Nobel Peace Prize. And we know that about half of his population was against making peace with the terrorists who harmed many of their lives and didn't want to forgive. And he had to overcome that and started a foundation that creates peace at the grassroots level called Fondation Compaz, and that's November the 4th. And then we have other events in December. So please join the Peace Action Network and be alerted to that. And the event with Jean-Paul Samputu is up now for registration. And by the way, September 21st, on International Day of Peace, we have like 2 or 3 spots left for Leaders Quest, where we're going to go to 4 areas of the world. We would normally go to Israel, Palestine, Northern Ireland, India, and and Detroit, where we're going to be meeting people that are previously incarcerated and transforming their lives. Detroit, Israel, Palestine are sold out. I think Mumbai has one spot left. Northern Ireland has a few. So if you register today, you could get on, but it will be closed tomorrow. A question from Facebook before we close off. Millie Koopman wants to know, would you mind give some suggestions to encounter your vulnerability in front of others who know part of you, and how to exercise your courage to face that situation? And thank you for sharing your professional insights. So suggestions to encounter your own vulnerability in front of others who know maybe part of you, and how to exercise your courage to face the situation, how to be vulnerable in front of others. Nicole, and then we'll finish with Alain.
Being vulnerable is a core part of forum fundamentals. That's what I was taught. I don't know whether it's correct learning, but I think as business leaders, we challenge ourselves to be as vulnerable as we can be, because there is nothing wrong about displaying your weakness. And that can easily also then become your strength. I think in uncertain times like this, it is even more important to show people that, yes, I'm afraid. Yes, I'm vulnerable. I'm not sure what the road ahead is like, but I'm willing to take that step together with you. I think this is something as leaders that we should be talking about, because we don't have answers for everything. We don't have that magic crystal ball as well. And by displaying that vulnerability at the upfront, people will actually respect you even more. Yeah. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Great thoughts, Alain.
Well, first of all, Nicole, before we part, I want to say I learned quite a bit from being on a panel with you. You have great insights on everything that is asked. So the thoughts that come to mind here about vulnerability is to insert humility in your life will open up the world to you and deal with that. I think having humor and grace are also attributes to think about as we think about being vulnerable in front of people. It's okay to be wrong, and it's okay, and learning from our peers is what it's all about. So be humble is what I would say.
And if I may just add one last thing, it's really okay to cry if you need to in these times. So don't be afraid to be vulnerable in that aspect. Yeah.
Interesting. Didn't think I'd get that advice today. And asking for help. I've never found a YPOer who did not respond when you asked for help, saying, "I don't know what to do. I need help." And YPOers will always come to help. So it's just part of our nature, and I guess it's part of human nature to have empathy for others. So being vulnerable allows the world to open up to you, to fill the void that you have. So we're going to wrap up now. This has been so much fun, so insightful, great learning. You guys, Nicole, Alain, incredible champions that you are. Just keep doing what you're doing, making the world a better place, a more peaceful place. Thank you to our audience for being there today for us. If you have any questions about Alain's knowledge pledge, I know you could look it up on the web. If you want to start your own food bank, I know Nicole will be able to help you. She's part of an organization of hundreds of food banks from around the world, or think of how you can make a difference in your community. If you want to check out Million Peacemakers, check out our website as well on how you can learn more about non-conflict, and YPO.org if you want to look into joining. If you're not already a member, there's membership criteria there. We highly urge it. It's really transformed our lives. Please follow YPO Presents on all the social media. There's Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube, so you'll be alerted of the upcoming events. And thanks to our backroom, Daniela and Carrie, for helping us keep on schedule. Everyone else, I know, Nicole, it's the end of your day. It's like past midnight. Go to sleep. And Alain, have a wonderful day, and the rest of you all.
You too. And Stephen, thank you so much for doing this. You're really a star, YPO star, and it was a pleasure being with you. And for those who would like to reach out, and please reach out through LinkedIn. If you need to like to be involved with the Knowledge Pledge, let me know. We are dreamers who do. So. Thank you.
Yep. And more importantly, peace to all.
Peace, everyone. Bye-bye.
Peace.